Welcome back to She Asked Tools for Practical Hope. I'm your host, Anna McBride, and I am so glad you're here with us today. Every week, we explore the stories, tools, and insights that help us navigate life's transitions with greater courage, clarity, and hope. If you found yourself asking, "Who am I now?" after a divorce, loss, caregiving season, career change, or simply years of putting someone else's needs or everyone else's needs ahead of your own, today's conversation is for you. Before we begin, I want to remind you that if you're navigating a life's transition and looking for support, I offer coaching, workshops, online courses, and complimentary consultations through my website, annamcbride.com. Now let's get started. Today I'm joined by Gail Watson. Gail is an entrepreneur, writer, and creative force whose life has taken her through remarkable personal and professional chapters. After building a successful reputation and career, Gail found herself facing a series of profound transitions: an abusive marriage, the loss of her mother, family caregiving responsibilities, and the difficult process of rebuilding your life and identity after years of living in survival mode. What emerged from that experience wasn't simply a new chapter, it was an entirely new relationship with herself. Gail, welcome to She Ask. I'm so glad you're here today.
Hi. Oh my God, that intro is amazing. Thank you. And God, yeah, that it sounds like a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, you've been through a lot.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
we like to begin our episodes with a story. So please share with us your experience of how you went from losing yourself to finding your way back.
So I think in a lot of ways my story is not uncommon. I'm the oldest daughter of the oldest sibling, the first grandchild, first granddaughter. And I have a brother who has emotional mental needs. Nothing terrific, but he demanded a lot of attention. So I became the good girl, the girl who, took care of everybody and made sure everything was smooth and whatnot. I was great at it, really great at it. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, so also that sense of independence and just doing things on your own, like striking out to doing things the way you want to do them is also sort of ingrained in me. After I graduated high school, I went to art school. I was not given a lot of encouragement to do my art, and so I went into the business that I grew up in, which was food, and became very successful at it. It was great. And I did it for 25 years. And one day I woke up and I was like, I am exhausted. I
Mhm.
had been giving and caring. And my business, I was in the wedding cake business. I worked every single weekend. So I had very little social life and, all that kind of stuff. So I hadn't had a partner. I'd gotten divorced 12 years into my marriage. And so it was just like I needed a change. And so after being the caregiver, I wanted to be taken care of,
Mm.
and which was really, really weird for me. And so I ended up with someone who really wanted to do that, but because they could manipulate me and, I was for them. You know what I mean? We weren't for each other. I was for them. It was surprising to me because I think I was told everything that I wanted to hear. When you're so when you evolve in a situation where you're always not thinking of yourself,
Mm.
when someone turns their attention on you and says, "You're amazing, you're so wonderful, I've never met anybody like you," you're like, "Oh, all the things that I've always wanted to hear."
Mm.
And so yeah, so I fell, long and hard. And then after we got married, this is my third marriage actually, things immediately started to fall apart. It's like all of a sudden I it just became very controlling and difficult. And then in the midst of all that, um, my mother developed dementia, which is a very difficult thing for me because my mother was a very big person in the community. I grew up in a small town on the east end of Long Island in Greenport, and she was the other mayor. Everybody knew May Watson. She ran a business in town that was very successful. Everybody hung out there. She was like Mama May. And my mother always took care of everybody else, but never really took care of me. So it was like this weird dynamic of having this super dynamic mother I was very proud of and I thought was pretty amazing, evolving into a child, evolving into somebody who no longer has that power and control. And then my having to step in and parent her, which was excruciatingly painful because I resented it so deeply. And I also had a logistical, she was about an hour and 45 minutes away from me. So I was driving back and forth. My life got upended and was kind of chaotic. And then in the midst of all of that, my wife was less than supportive. She was very aggressively angry that I was giving my mother attention. I was taking away attention from her, really. And so at one of the worst times of my life, I was battling. I felt it was like a triple battle. Yeah. So that when I reached that point of being completely exhausted and drained, because I think, one of the things, and I think you've talked about this before on your podcast, that one of the miracles of being a person who grows up in this environment is that you have unlimited stores of power and strength and the ability to tolerate and carry on. I mean, there should be an Olympics for this. Like we should all get gold medals for this. But it is like, and I prided myself on that, and I thought it was really amazing, and I thought that was a skill. And I realized that it was actually, kind of killing me and not really great. I mean,
Mhm.
not asking for help and bearing it all is, not necessarily the best thing in the world. There was a point, and it was just a little bit over a year ago, where all of a sudden all the light bulbs started going off. So that's kind of what happened.
Okay. Wow. That's quite a story that feels way too familiar
Yeah.
and most likely universal, right? Because
Yeah.
there are so many qualities in your story that I really know will resonate with our listeners because there's this feminine tendency, right, to put our needs to the side for sake of taking care of or being good or achieving even, right?
Mhm.
And so we're going to unpack this today because I really do think it's important to for us to keep expanding our awareness are the ways in which we abandon ourselves so that we can be, I don't know, appreciated, loved, to use your phrase you use, to be taken care of,
Mhm.
right? It's a trade-off, right? And so let's talk first about, some parts of this. Like what was life like before this period where you got lost? It was high achieving, you said. It was really developing a persona. So tell me more about that.
One of the beautiful things about being in the wedding cake business, aside from the fact that you're making beautiful things for happy people, which was magical, it was a blessing. I got a lot of immediate feedback and praise. So I think that was one of the things that sort of sustained me over the years, that people were telling me, "Oh, this is beautiful, this is great, this is wonderful, delicious." That was really nice. But in my mind, that was my bifurcated business persona, not me personally. And so, the other stuff was that I really loved getting praised for being amazing, for being able to put up with so much stuff and to get so much done in a short period of time and to spin so many plates at the same time. Yeah, there was a lot of, ability to do all that.
So it's interesting. It's almost like there was this persona that you were able to become for sake of this need of appreciation, feedback, And yet what I'm hearing you say is that there is this difference from who you were personally.
I'm also from a Latina background, and I had an interesting conversation with my mother and my aunt, at one point uh, before this marriage, after my previous marriage. I was sort of raised with the notion that, keeping a house was something that you should be proud of, and, not complaining, and, taking care of others, and, all that stuff was a point of pride. And
Oh, okay.
so, and it was interestingly with my mother and my aunt, both married abusive partners. And I
Mm,
said, why did you do that? And why did you suggest that I do that? Like,
mm,
why did you encourage me to follow that path? And they're like, this is just like kind of what we did, like
right. It was
uh,
familiar. It was familiar.
it was ingrained. I mean, it was sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that was the path, and we were getting gold stars for it. So it was like sort of easy
Wow.
to fall in line.
Yeah.
But I was,
Wow.
I don't know. I think I'm really lucky. I had a lot of really wonderful people in my life that was giving me a lot of great feedback, your sister being one of them, that I was like, you know what, there's more to me than suffering and climbing mountains every day. When I started, it's sort of like, if you ever been like walking around all night in high heels and then you take your shoes off, like at first it really hurts, but then you start getting the feeling in your feet. So I started to get that feeling like, oh, okay, I don't need to be doing all that pain, those walks of pain.
That's interesting that you describe it that way. As somebody who wears high heels too often, I know what you're talking about. Did you realize at what point, let me ask it this way, did you realize that you were putting up with a lot within these relationships, right?
Well, I'll talk about my most recent relationship, which is that, I married somebody who had some, physical issues, and so needed a lot of time and attention with that. And so that kind of took a lot of focus and attention. And then it got to a point where I was having some troubles, and I'd say, I need to talk to you about something. I need some help with this. And it was always like, oh, I can't do that for you. Don't you know what I'm going through? And at first, my reaction was, oh, yes, of course. Yes, of course. How can I help you? I'm fine. How can I help you? But then after, maybe like 4 or 5 years of that, I was like, I need help. Like I'm kind of struggling here. And I think I should have the right to ask for help. And I think I should have the right to expect it. Didn't really 100% believe that, but you know what I'm saying? It was like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's when, when
Hmm.
my mom got sick and that whole dynamic changed.
Okay.
It really altered a lot of things about my
Right.
understanding of the world, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, you know what? I am really struggling with this. This is big. This is the biggest thing I've had to deal with, and I'm not handling it gracefully. I need love and support. And so when I
Okay.
turned around and verbally asked for it and didn't receive it, and worse, that
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't think this is good.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I questioned it. I had a counselor at the time, and I'm like, I think I should, I think I should be able to ask for help. I think I'm struggling here. I don't think I should be feeling badly about needing.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't really, she's one of those counselors who's like, okay, well, let's see how we can help you with this. And I'm like, I wish someone had said to me, yeah, Gail, you are a human being that deserves just as much love and care as you give
Right.
to everybody else. That would have saved me years of
Okay.
aggravation. But that was sort of the moment where I was like, this is hurting way too much. And
Okay.
I don't know where to go with this because this is bigger than I've ever had it.
Okay.
And yeah, I was sort of losing stamina.
So it's interesting the way you're describing this, that it took 4 or 5 years to come to, right? It's this gradual process of losing yourself
Hmm.
within a relationship, right? Because we are familiar from it. It's culturally ingrained. It's what you do,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, right? And what your parents did, what your mother did, what your aunt did, right? We get that prideful, uh, accommodation or accreditation when we do all the things, right, that a good wife does or a good mother does. Now, it's interesting that you described in your conversation or your story that the things, like having dreams or having ideas and then watching them get shut down or having these needs that you were expressing and then having them not being fulfilled or even somehow being made to feel like it wasn't okay to have them.
Right.
To talk about that, because looking back, what signs did you miss?
There was a lot of seesawing back and forth because, I'd say to myself, this doesn't feel good. I want to drop down into my authentic self and do the things that really resonate with me, not really necessarily taking anything away from anybody else except some time and attention. That would maybe go be okay for a little while, but then I got chided and reprimanded for taking that time and attention. And the language was, you don't deserve to do this.
Oh.
You should be doing this. Like you shouldn't, I'm expecting you to do X, Y, and Z, and that is not in that definition. And so I immediately go to, oh, I'm being a bad girl. Oh, I'm not doing right. Oh, I need to, step in and do this properly. I'm failing at that, so I need to like focus on that.
Mm,
So then I would go and I would do that for a while and then start to get hungry for myself and I go back and then so there's
mm,
this like there was a this very turgid loop for a while of trying to balance that out until one day I was like, there's no balancing this out. This is a very toxic imbalance. And
mm,
I was a very important part of that loop, which
mm,
was the other part that was really important for me. Because
right.
it's one thing to sit there and go, oh, she's being mean to me. Oh, I'm not getting the love and support and, cry, cry. But I was saying yes. I
Mm.
was participating. I was agreeing.
Excuse me.
So
Mm,
so, that was that was the change. So I switched my counselor to another therapist. And those are the conversations that I started to have, which
mm,
was I always had a definition of who I was.
mm,
And it turns out that I was not really that person. And my all my coping skills I thought were heroic were actually kind of sad in a way. And
mm,
so taking that position of like, okay, how did I get here? How did I allow and embody all of these insecurities and think that it was okay? And then still some part of my mind think I was a strong woman.
mm, mm. Yeah, I could see the confusion because I think a lot of women, and I'll ask you if you agree, sometimes confuse sacrifice with love.
Yeah.
And is
Yeah.
that where you were?
Yeah, I thought it was a gold star. I thought it was an award. Yeah. Like the more
Yeah.
hurt, the better the gain.
Right. In my marriage, and I only had one, it was longer enough for me, was that I kept just going along with what he wanted. Somehow I mirrored my mother insofar that I was there to please him. And pleasing looked like even if I didn't understand, even if I didn't agree, even if it was at all cost of my persona, right?
Hmm.
I went along with it. Um,
Right.
and and I got lost in the process deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I definitely was one of those women who confused sacrifice with love, thinking it was a part of it, like it was the same thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we're told relationships are difficult and it, requires
Hmm.
compromise. And so you go, okay, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's too
But then when
common.
it shifted to I was wrong for having my desires, that was
Yeah.
different.
Well, I love how you actually were able to get to owning your part because I think that's where the true freedom is, right? When we take
Mhm.
accountability
Yeah.
for participating
Yeah.
in the losing of
Yeah.
ourselves, right?
That was hard. I'm honestly because
Mm.
Not all of it was very pretty. I mean, it was pretty embarrassing and it was pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
shaming, to myself. It's like
Right.
how,
How did I get here? You
you
said.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just, and I said and did things that I was not proud of. You know, I,
Hmm.
I argued and made noises that I should never have, things I should never have said.
Mm.
But, um, but, having gone through that process now, so that was the huge like turn that got the juggernaut to change, right? So this sort of
Right.
like
Right.
tectonic shift of, wait a minute, this is not right. And
Hmm.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it now for sure. Not
Hmm.
in my head, in my soul, that I was meant for different. And not
Mm.
as a I deserve, but as a this is I have a lot and this is something that I should have.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then that turned into reconciling and balancing all of that stuff. So what I mean by that is, so now I have this awareness. Now it's taking responsibility for it and being it was very difficult. It was very like I want to say shameful to myself, like just feeling like
Mm.
how do you allow and who am I now and
Yeah.
how do you start to place boundaries
Right.
where you're still getting the pull, those old,
Yeah.
tried and true rut, pathways of
Right.
stepping back into overgiving and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those pathways, those patterns, right? Because to me, they really ring to or speak about like survival, right?
Hmm.
And um, like you, I adapted a lot of this stuff into my life from my upbringing. And what I remember you saying earlier in your story was that you talk about being an overachiever, an overgiver, a problem solver, right? The
Hmm.
person who just got things done, handled everything, right? I could so relate to that. So tell us about that version of Gail.
So when I was growing up, I was pretty much ignored for all the things that I did, right?
Oh.
So a little quick story is that when I was getting ready for the my junior prom in high school, and I was on every committee and did all of that stuff because I did a lot of things to get out of the house.
Mhm.
Um, Color My World was our song, which happens to be a very short song. So I made a little booklet and every couple I calligraphied their name and wrote out this beautiful little thing that was to be given out at the prom. And I remember my father coming to me and saying, "That's stupid. Like, I don't know why you're wasting your time
Oh.
doing this. This is like such a it was such a bucket of cold water." And here I was all joyful and excited about it. And I was putting ridiculous amounts of time, effort, and energy into this thing, but I was getting a lot of joy out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I, I I did get a lot of accolades and a lot of gratitude from other people outside of my family. Like when I showed up with those little things, everybody thought it was amazing, right?
Right, right.
So
Wow.
so that was fun. It was nice to work hard at something and get recognition and affirmation, for that.
Okay.
And then I got, better and better at it. And I think, if you really want people to fall in love with you, you learn how to cook or better off bake.
Well, let me tell you a quick aside. So my mother was, I don't know if my sister was an amazing cook. In fact,
Oh yeah.
she learned how to cook and how to speak English by watching Julia Child on
Oh,
PBS,
really?
right? And so she got her Joy of Cooking book and did all these crazy recipes for us, unappreciated, but we were forced to enjoy, eat them. And anyway, the point being is she was a great cook, but she was a terrible teacher, and she fought really hard and scrimped or whatever to get certain things in her kitchen, like a
Hmm.
Vulcan stove, and which is, for those of my listeners that don't know, I mean, that is a top level chef
Yeah.
thing to have. And anyway, she wouldn't let us touch it, right? We weren't allowed to touch her things. It was
Yeah.
like her thing. So anyway, here I am an adult. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to cook. And I married a man who was a chef thinking, oh my gosh,
Oh,
I won't go
great.
hungry,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah.
Well, chefs don't like to cook at home, you know. I mean, you can tell me more about that than I know. He certainly wanted to come home and he was perfectly happy having hot dogs. And I'm like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? So anyway, I had to really learn myself how to eat. And and I know what you mean in terms of people loving you for being able to cook them a good meal. My children
Hmm.
have benefited from me getting better at cooking because they will tell you that in my early years, I killed broccoli, for example. Um, and so, anyway, I understand that. Now, let me ask you this because I know that so much of this growth really was stunted by this idea of being the good girl, the good daughter, right? And it comes with a cost. So tell me what being the good girl meant for you, and what did it cost you?
So it meant never complaining about,
Mm.
anything, right? So
Oh,
I would be starving, I would be freezing, I would be lonely or sad or whatever, and never ever opened my mouth.
mm,
And maybe I would solve the problems for myself as I got older. Of course, as an adult, I did. But even still, everybody else first, kind of thing. Um,
okay, wow.
and I think it really cost me in the sense that one of the things that I've learned now that asking for help is a blessing for both people on both sides, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I used to get that a lot. I used to get like, Gail, you're so stoic, you're so
Mm-hmm.
tough, and people would find me cold, like chilly sometimes. When people first met me, especially, I was always very guarded and I wanted to make sure that you were safe. But I never wanted help. It was a badge of honor to do it all myself, no matter how much pain and energy it cost me. And I think I've lost a lot from like now understanding it the way I understand it now. It's like there were so many collaborations or
Mm.
uh, dynamics that I missed because I was carrying that torch solo.
Yeah, it's like a coping mechanism, right? Not asking for help. And so I understand that,
And of
certainly.
course, I attracted people who liked it, right? So I got a lot of feedback that it was a good thing. Not a lot of people were saying, "Hey, let me help you." They were like, "Oh, great, you're going to give me more. I can sit down and relax, and you could do everything. That's fantastic."
I'm
Yes,
only laughing
yes, and
because,
now let me add
yeah,
3 more cherries on top to make it even
I've been there and done that, overgiving, right?
better. Yeah,
Overdoing as a way to
so
please
embarrassing.
people. Yeah. However, I think that when you grow up and you somehow sense, feel, or know like your needs aren't going to be met, right? You learn to shut them down as
Hmm.
if that just means you're needy.
Yeah,
When what I've come to appreciate and certainly understand in therapy through therapy is that having needs doesn't make you needy. It just makes you human,
right.
right? And yet we kind of have been raised in certainly not only in our families but also in our culture that it's you're too needy. You want too much.
Yeah. Don't
Stop.
don't cause me any problems. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just shut that stuff down.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's crazy. So we talk about coping versus healing, right? I think that so many women struggle with this, right?
Hmm.
We're praised for holding everything together, and not needing too much or anything, or asking for help, right? We'll do it all. But eventually that strategy just helps us survive. We don't really thrive there,
Right. Absolutely.
right? So when did you realize you were empty?
There's a famous story in my marriage where I had had a particularly rough time with my mother. If you know anything about dementia, through the phases of dementia, there's a phase where they're just agitated and they cause all sorts of chaos and tear their houses apart. It's just so every day I was getting phone calls. She
Mm,
was in assisted living and they were like threatening to, ask her to leave and, all this stuff. Because I was so far away, I would go there and I would have a few hours to go to the drugstore to do these things that the window of the 9 to 5 day. And then I had to turn around and get on the LIE in traffic to go home and make dinner. And so one day I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get the energy to go home. And I called my wife and I said, can you please handle dinner tonight? And
mm,
her response was, I can't believe, why didn't you eat? You should have gotten a sandwich. And I was like, I don't need you to yell at me right now. I need you to take care of me. Really. I am at the point where I don't have that shame of being a good girl. I am so down. I am so empty. I am so desperate. And then
mm,
when asking for it and not only not getting it, but being chided for asking for it was like, I
mm.
don't have any more down to go.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know. And I just sat in the car and just bawled and cried. And then I got very numb. Then I went home and I just was like, all right, I'm just gonna
Mm,
do. And I did that for a little while, and then that quickly started to turn into, yeah, this is not my life.
okay.
This is just not. And no matter what I did,
Mm,
nobody was happy, right? I wasn't
yeah.
taking care of my mother properly. I wasn't taking care of my family properly. Or certainly wasn't taking care of myself properly.
Right.
And I thought, this is all wrong,
Yeah.
all
So
wrong.
what happens when coping stops working?
A lot of tears. Fortunately, not a lot of alcohol or anything like that, because that's another coping mechanism, right? I mean,
Mm, mm-hmm.
I I withdrew. Like my coping mechanism was to withdraw. I actually
Okay.
took some time away from my marriage. I came to New York and stayed in my apartment just to sort of catch my breath and get my legs back underneath me. Go for a couple of weeks. And then I
Mm,
would reconcile everything and try to figure out like, oh yes, I can tolerate this after all. And then I go back and so there's a lot of
mm,
back and forth about that also.
mm.
Um,
Wow.
but then, like it gets to a point where I started to say to myself, okay, so I now live in this imbalanced environment. How like I want to be in a balanced environment. I love this person. I love my wife. I love the life that we have. How do I make it into the healthy thing that I want it to be or it should be?
Yeah.
So I started to think about that. So what does that mean? That means a lot more communication, for
Oh,
one,
okay.
and vulnerability to be truthful about what you need and what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really hard because, first of all, I didn't have the language for it. I did not know how to say, I need this, or I'm upset, or I'm angry.
Right.
Definitely did not know how to say I'm angry
Right.
without falling apart. I only knew extreme. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I started to practice. I started to say, okay, I really need to grab attention, sit down and say, I want to do this. I want us to be healthy. I'm getting healthier. I want us to be healthier. Um, let's build this better together.
Okay.
And I knew it was going to be tough. I knew my wife was going to struggle with it because what does she know? She's going along, living her life. All of a sudden, here I am.
Right.
But I worked really hard on that for a long time. I actually did that for about 2 years. I moved into that zone.
So talk a little bit about what what you leaned on to help you to rebuild the communication.
Um, I leaned on, I would say, a couple of different things. I did have a good therapist, counselor. I mean, it was really important for me to talk. And I was very fortunate that the person I was working with did not work by the hour. She worked by the phone call. So I could
Mm,
get on the phone and talk for 2 hours if I needed to, like work it all through, which was
okay.
priceless.
Mm,
I think that's really important, or it was important for me at that time, not so much now, but because I just had all of this offloading that I needed to do,
right,
right?
right.
You're
Yeah,
carrying all this stuff.
sure.
Um, I then started to develop a friend network, which was also like really, really important, and people that were not toxic, which was not easy, you know,
Mm,
because I'm still wanting to please people and make everybody happy. And to like me,
right.
I thought I had to be good to you. So that was a bit of a challenge, but that was easier because those people responded, right? If I said, you know what, I'm struggling with this, they would say, oh, I'm sorry, how can I help? Which
Mm,
was the beginnings of showing me that there was a possibility of being in a healthy dynamic.
right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say that that was that was really priceless. In the end, that really, I think, is what. And when I made the decision to leave my marriage, it was those relationships that I leaned on that were
Hmm.
absolutely life-saving.
So
And
it
even
sounds
if
like you were learning how to rebuild a support system that could help you take action in your life. Yeah.
right, a safe place where I could say I need help and
Mm.
know that I would be lend a hand. You know,
Yeah,
like I,
foundation for help. That's really, intentionally created,
yeah,
which it seems to, based on what you're saying, going against this old version of you,
it
right?
was very, very new and strange, but I was in a desperate place. You know, like when you're starving, you'll eat anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
willing to, but I had friends that I would walk in the door and they would look at me and go, "You're not doing so great today, are you?" And I'd say, "No." And they'd say, "Come sit here. Just come sit down
Mhm.
next to me. No
Mm.
talking, just I'm right here. Come sit next to
Wow.
me. Be right here." And
Wow.
even those moments were extremely powerful that someone was
Right.
willing to be
Mm.
grounding and be caring without
Hmm.
having to be performative.
Right. Yeah. It is
I didn't have to
interesting.
perform, they didn't have to perform.
Yeah. I
Huge.
think this is where a lot of women struggle, if I can say. Like, I can only relate to it myself. Like, I was very resilient in my life. In fact, I confused resilience as a superpower. And I
Right.
thought, oh my goodness, and yet what it was doing was it was contributing to my level of self-abandonment,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And only because it's what I grew up around was like
Mhm.
we just move forward. We just keep going. We just keep
Right.
going. Now, what I really love about what I'm hearing is you were learning to receive also, right? The care and feeding and being willing to be seen, vulnerable, right?
Right.
In your moment of really
Yeah.
low point, which a
Right.
lot of women, hey, I'm one of them too. That's not comfortable, is
It's
it?
not. It's really tough.
Particularly when you're an overachiever, right?
Yeah. So you have to drop your mantle of I'm okay, I can do everything, which is
Yeah,
how everybody sees you, has known you,
right.
and then be like, I'm falling apart into a million pieces, and I need you to help me because I am going to slip away into nothingness.
Yeah. Wow.
Really it takes a certain amount of bravery and audacity to do
Mm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found was so here is the miracle,
Okay.
is that the more that I did it, the more I received it.
Oh,
The
okay.
more I was saying to people, and even if I didn't have to give them the whole story or like yak, yak, yak about it, just be like, yeah, I'm having a hard time. And
Mm.
just sitting with that and letting them say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm here. What
Mm.
started to, it reached a point where it started to become like I craved it. Then it
Oh.
was like, oh, yes, that's
Mm.
home. That's the beacon. That's the
Okay.
place to go.
Okay.
And it wasn't, and I knew that it wasn't just my friends. Like I mean, my friends were amazing.
Right.
I didn't want to transfer all of my, like redirect all of my things to my friends. It wasn't their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of the dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then and it's also, again, it's like exposure therapy. It's more and more, and it felt better
Yeah.
and better and safer and safer. And then, now here's the other miracle,
Mm.
that when I had an incident this morning where I had done someone a favor, kind of overextended myself a little bit a few months ago. and they dropped the ball on something. And so I reached out to them and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I should have reached out to you sooner, but we need to solve this problem." And I got an asshole response from them. And
Mm,
first reaction would have been, "I'm so sorry. It's my fault. I should have done this. I should have handled this differently. Don't worry. It's fine." And I
hmm.
instead now I should just move like, that's not making me comfortable. I'm not really happy about that. I'm
Right.
showing it to you honestly and with
Yeah.
clarity about this. If I miss something, let's talk about it.
Right.
And so those I I can not only I don't have to intellectualize those cues so much anymore. I
Okay.
feel those cues. So when someone's being a jerk,
Okay.
I can very quickly go, yeah, no,
Yeah.
not so
So you're
much.
touching on something that's an interesting topic about like moving from being a victim to being accountable,
Right.
right? And so, one of the things I really appreciate is that perspective because I know that when I have allowed myself to be the victim, I open myself up to, no boundaries, people taking advantage of me, which then leads to resentments, right? And I'm just left being unhappy. Yet when I'm accountable to myself and my
Hmm.
life, then I can hold other people accountable
Right.
for their commitments, right? So talk a little bit about how you were able to shift from the where you were, just taking it and doing things, overachieving, overgiving, blah, 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 to this point of being able to notice when something doesn't work out the way you want, like you just described, and you can reach out and hold the other person accountable without taking all the I don't know, lion's share of responsibility for the situation.
I think
Okay.
the major thing was that it started to occur to me that again, this kind of went back to my perspective and my responsibility in the dynamic. So I started to understand that, like to use the example of this situation this morning, that this toxic dialogue, I had two options on how to handle it, right? I could fawn and,
Mm,
apologize and try to make right and take it on the chin, or I could recognize that this is something that I can choose to take or not take, to carry
mm,
or not to carry, or to interpret in that way or not interpret in that way. So, by the way, in this conversation with this person, I start to think, what's going on with her that she has to call me these names and treat me in this way? Like, I know that I didn't do anything wrong, right? Or I
okay.
don't believe, I mean, I'm willing to talk about it if I did. But I believe that the majority of that conversation was driven by something that I shamed her somehow in my choice of language, or who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a walking dynamic.
Mm,
So I want to share something with you, and maybe this might be too much, but I'm going to share it with you anyway.
okay.
So I came to a realization that we are all sort of bodies of like energy, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
use aura if you want, because we know that. And we have, you meet people that are so light and so energetic and so creative, and we love that, right? Like we're drawn to that.
Right. Right.
We all have our energies and our experiences, and we have to integrate. So we bump into each other, we come to each other, and our colors change because of that mix, that time that we share with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes some goes to you, and sometimes some goes to me. And sometimes those things meld, and sometimes they don't. And at some point you go, you know what, that's not working. And that's how we kind of pull away and move towards somebody else.
Okay.
There's always some kind of residual, right? There's always a little bit of a mark, which is the
Mm,
beautiful part of being a human, right? Like we
mm,
don't want to be insulated and insular and perfect and contained. We want to lean in and spill over and receive, into each other. So with that in mind, when I put it in that perspective in my mind,
mm,
I have a lot of I want to say forgiveness, but I have a whole lot of it's not important. Like
Mm,
you are going through your thing has nothing to do with me.
okay.
I'm not going to now create another
So you
negative
don't take it
burden.
personally. Right.
Right. And now I'm
Right.
walking around like with a whole bunch of toxic angst and anger and energy. Like this conversation this morning, I could be like, like,
Yeah, you don't have to
and then
pick it
talk to
up.
my friends and be like, God, can you believe her? And blah, blah, like all that spills out.
Okay.
And what does that do for anybody?
Okay. So what I'm hearing and what you're sharing, Gail, is that you realize that, other people's energy is something that you can pick up and carry, or you can just leave right where they are, right? Where you connected with it. Because you're right. I agree with you. It is a choice. Like our attitudes are our choice. Our perspectives are our choice and our outlooks, right? And I think like at any moment or any intersection we have with a situation or an individual or conversation, um, it really is a choice
Hmm.
about what we choose to carry and then take into the rest of our day,
Right.
or what we can just sort of leave right where we met it, right?
Right.
Just right there. Yeah. And
So
I
the
think,
trick, and
hmm,
especially for people like us,
yeah.
to learn when to hold space,
Mm.
have it not feel like you're sacrificing or you're taking too much on. Just
Okay.
hold space.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Whew. That's a great tool, actually,
Yeah.
right? That you can hold it without continuing to carry
Hmm.
it, right? So, let's shift a little bit. You mentioned in an earlier conversation with me this idea of the University of Mary,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And I
Right.
really love that phrase. And I don't know that I fully understand it, but you said you referred to your marriage as the University of Mary. So
Yeah.
tell us what that means.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, the lawyers are charging me a lot of tuition these days. Um, I recognize that, I had been in a series of relationships similar to my relationship with Mary. And
Mm,
so I had been repeating the pattern. To which I was like, okay, universe, I got it. Like, okay, already. But, like everybody says, when they go through something horrible, it's always a blessing for them. And
okay.
Mary is not the worst person in the world. She's got a lot of wonderful things about her. She does a lot of self-work. I mean, she's, I get on her case, but she really is a lot of amazing, wonderful things. I love that woman. I fell in love with her. And so because of that, there was a lot of play in our dynamic. And so I got to really grow and learn from her. And had I
Mm,
not been through that relationship, had I not gone through all of this stuff, I would
mhm.
not be the person that I am today. I
Right. Yeah.
mean, I wish I
Uh,
had done it 50 years ago,
uh-huh.
40 years ago.
Yeah, they were hard lessons, but I'm
Better
hearing
really.
gratitude. I'm hearing
Oh,
gratitude, right?
tremendous amount of gratitude.
Yeah. I
And
think
honestly, as I go forth with my divorce, that's my attitude about it. It's like, we're just here now. Like we have just come to this place. So I don't fight in my divorce. That's not what it's about.
okay.
This is a business dynamic, not an emotional, dynamic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a more freeing perspective in terms of how to approach this stage of it.
Yeah.
It's when I adopted when, I'm divorced now 4 years um and whatever it is that I have to keep doing with in regards to my ex-husband, legally, I I know that one, I'm not doing it on my own. It can be expensive, but that's what lawyers are for, so that I can be detached. And
Yeah.
I also realize that all of this, because my biggest lesson that I had to learn in life was about boundaries. And growing up in a family where those didn't exist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It became something that every relationship I've ever had outside of my family of origin has been here to teach me is about boundaries
Hmm.
so that I don't lose myself, you
Right.
know? Um, so yeah, I understand that tuition that we have to grow, internalize anyway.
No, I seriously am like tremendously grateful, really.
Hmm. Hmm. It's great when you can shift, right, to the gratitude out of hurt, victimization, or resentment to
Yeah.
gratitude. It's freeing.
And I would also say it's a little bit even broader than gratitude for me. It's more, I mean, because I'm certainly grateful, but it's
Mhm.
also like I have this, it's like you wiped off your glasses. I can see more clearly. I have
Oh,
better understanding. I
that's
have my
clarity.
relationship with my
Clarity.
children is deeper and greater and
Right.
wider. You
Great.
know what I mean? Because of that shift, that change.
Yeah.
Lucky. I know that a lot of women go through these relationships and get so battered and brutalized. It's
Right.
really impossible to not feel,
So it's a good point. So for the women who are
my heart goes
listening
out to women like
who
that.
feel stuck,
Yeah.
exhausted, or lost, right?
Mm.
Where do you recommend that she begin?
Honestly, I think the first place is you really need to find a good counselor or therapist. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is you need to find somebody who speaks your language. And if you
Mm,
have to talk to 100 people, then you have to talk to 100 people. And
yeah,
it's your
right.
fault and it's not a failing and it's not that they're bad counselors. It's that you
Oh,
haven't found
thank
your
you.
thing. And when you have someone that really helped, like really resonates with you and hears you and you hear each other,
Right.
it's it's leaps and bounds can happen. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's number one. And a
Okay.
lot and the biggest problem is that we're so used to doing things by ourselves, like, oh yes, I watch the podcasts, I read the books, I'm good. I know how to do this. So that I guess is probably the first thing is to recognize that you cannot do this alone,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Uh,
Mm,
and then I think, the next thing is like if you're going to do this work, then
hmm.
you need to take off the rose-colored glasses and really see things for what they are. I mean,
Oh,
just
so get honest, right? Right.
be really honest.
Oof.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that was the most humbling part of this whole process for me towards accountability and
Hmm.
away from victimization is just embracing honesty.
Yeah.
Realizing that in every situation that I felt transgressed or hurt by, there was a part that I played.
Hmm.
And this is in my adulthood. As a child, that's a different thing, but as an adult, I was still participating in ways that were abandoning myself, right?
Yeah.
Or further creating suffering for me. So anyway,
Those
I can,
silences that were really loud in your head, that you
yeah,
never exposed,
yeah. Ooh,
yeah.
yeah, honesty. Well, good. Those are some
Oh, and all I
great
can
begin.
say for people, to people, and I say to myself on a regular basis, is
Mm,
that all of this, there is safety in all of this, right? I mean, it is not linear. It is not fine. Like, it's sort of like yoga, however you show up that day is how you show up that day.
okay.
So there's a lot of forgiveness about, like there are days I'm
Yeah,
like in tears and feeling like, oh, I'm weak and wishing I could go back. Like I
right.
want to go back to that magical time that I used to know, right? And so
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
all part of the process
right.
and really important to then take in and like it's all there. Like you can't shut the door and close it off. Like that is
Right.
definitely the way.
Yeah, there's no such thing as amputation or closure,
It would
right?
be
There's
nice, but
only forgiveness and grace, I think,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
What
Wow.
was that movie, the Spotless Mind, where they
Yeah.
get amnesia?
Yeah, right.
That would have been really nice.
Take the medicine and
Right.
be clear. No, doesn't work. Thankfully, because I have, gained a lot of insight from that reflection. All
Right.
right, so let's shift into what I call rapid fire, right? As a way to sort of wrap things up here. I'm going to give you a couple sentences that I'll begin and then I want you to finish them. Okay. So the biggest lesson my marriage taught me was,
Um, that um, my instincts are valid and not wrong.
hmm, good one. A boundary I wish I learned sooner is,
Um, I I think that would be uh just knowing just being able to say where the edge is, like not being ashamed to say this is just too much, like
Mm,
yeah, not so much, and not feel like a bad person for doing that.
right. Yeah, whew, for sure.
Yeah.
Healing means,
Healing means breathing, and I think it really means quiet. I think it really means settling into yourself and your authentic self and what's happening around you and just calming down, like really just calming down.
yeah. And finally, the woman I'm becoming is,
So fucking amazing.
yes.
I am so happy. Like, I mean, it's so interesting because uh all my I summer in East Hampton, and so all my tennis pals, like we haven't seen each other since, last fall. And a friend of mine said to me the other day, they were like, "Oh my God, Gail, like you look so different. You were so dark and heavy, and boy, you're
Hmm.
like so different now." And I'm like, because everyone's like, "Oh, how's the divorce?" And I'm like, "I'm great. I'm great." Yeah. Yeah, no, it's hard. It's a pain in the ass, but I'm so, I just wake up and I go, I'm shocked every day at how old I am. And sometimes I get upset about that. Like, oh God, all those years. But also I've got all of these years.
Right.
And every day, I had a great experience last night. Like every day there's, when you're in this place, now when you get to this place, and God, anybody out there who's getting to this place, I mean, I'm so happy for you, and I hope that you get here. But every day there are miracles. Like every day there is beauty and
Y-
miracles. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
so, woo-wooey silly, but I'm telling you, on the subway, in a tomato patch. I mean, it's just kind
Yeah.
of incredible.
Well,
And
you make fucking awesome look really, really good. I love this for you. I
and
love this for you.
everywhere, and it's just like enjoy, enjoy. I mean, I used to tell this joke that in the Catholic Church, the scripture says that priests should be celibate. And I thought, what if they were wrong? What if it was that priests should celebrate? Like we should be rejoicing, which makes a
They
lot
just
more
got the word wrong.
sense. Yeah. There was like one of those guys who did the calligraphy just did the wrong little twist, right? But think
Yeah.
about that, like, because you think about the joy of religion and God and hope and all of that, like that makes more sense, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
We should
Yeah,
all
let's
be
find more reasons to
rejoicing.
celebrate. More
We
reasons
get to
to celebrate.
rejoice.
So for our listeners who are definitely going to be inspired by this conversation and want to learn more about you and the woman you're becoming. So tell my listeners where they can learn more about your work and how to connect with you.
Um, So I'm doing a couple of new things. So I'm going back to my original art school stuff. I was a photographer in art school, so I'm doing that, and that's on a little bird studio .com, and it's Gail Watson photo on Instagram. And then I'm back to cooking and doing my food again and creating recipe developing and stuff. And that's on a healthy hunger uh, website, TikTok, Instagram, all the same.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we list all of this in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because
And
these
girlfriends,
are
I'm here for you. So like you need to reach out seriously. I'm really happy to help.
you should consider you probably, not are so busy, but it's certainly like a Dear Abby version, a Dear Gail version of
Oh, I don't know.
navigating.
Anna, I think you're really good at that. I'm gonna leave that to you, my darling.
Well, thank you. Yeah, right. We got to learn to stay in our lanes. All right. So, all right, friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you, Gail, for being here with us. This has been
Yeah,
a very lively conversation about so many things that can happen in our life when we get lost and how we can find our way back. So, thank you for joining us and sharing your experience, your strength, and your hope with our listeners.
thanks. Well,
You
thank you to you because I listen to your podcast and the energy and the wisdom that you impart to women it resonates so well and it's priceless. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, listeners. So, if today's conversation resonated with you, I hope it reminds you that you are allowed to evolve. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to take up space. Seriously. You are allowed to outgrow old roles. You are allowed to stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours to begin with. And you're allowed to become someone new without apologizing for it. And if you're looking for support in your own journey, visit my website to learn more about coaching, workshops, retreats, and online courses, annamcbride.com. You've been listening to She Asked, Tools for Practical Hope. I've been your host, Anna McBride. Thank you for joining us. And until soon, be well.